Thanks for coming back to the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. To say Rhiannon Lott's story is a lifesaver would be an understatement. The Dark Prince and the White Crow is a children's book inspired by some of this young woman's darkest days, and yet it is a book full of hope and inspiration. Your whole life is an inspiration, Rhiannon. Let's start with what you do for a living, all right? You're a mechanic in a gold mine in Nevada. You fix haul trucks. How many women even do that?
Not very many women. I am like one of three, and there's many mechanics because technically it's called being a diesel mechanic because they are diesel trucks. They're gigantic trucks. They're 3 stories tall. So,
How did you end up doing that?
well, I was the GM of an IHOP in Pennsylvania, and then the owner of the restaurant dropped dead and his family sold the restaurant. And I kind of got like screwed out of my job. And I'd gone through a whole bunch of really crappy events before that. So my father decided to fly out from Seattle to Pennsylvania, pick me and my girls up, and then drive us back to Seattle where I could get my feet under me and figure out what I was going to do with my life. But my father got belligerently drunk one night, and he was screaming at my girls, and because we were all traveling together, so we were all in like one hotel room. But I told my father I was going to get me and my girls our own separate room for the night. He told us if we did, he was going to leave us there, and I got up the next morning and he did. So me and my girls.
Oh my God, Rhiannon. You should write that story.
How about the story of my husband almost killing me, and spent 6 months in a domestic violence shelter? Or how about the story of my first husband who died and I was widowed with 2 kids?
Oh, Rhiannon.
I mean, I've my whole life's a story, hon. It's just one of those like where do you start? The Dark Prince originated from 6 months after my divorce. 6 months after my divorce, my ex-husband at the time, he tried to kill me. He strangled me to unconsciousness, and he thought I was dead. He kidnapped my girls and he disappeared for 2 weeks.
Oh,
When I came to and saw my girls were gone and did all that, I went to the sheriff's department. I went to a domestic violence shelter. I spent 2 weeks in the domestic violence shelter by myself, like before I even got my girls back. And then like after I got my girls back, we were in the domestic violence shelter for another like 4.5, 5 months. But in the 2 weeks time that I was there waiting to get my girls back, I was on the brink of insanity. Like my ex-husband had literally just tried to kill me. My kids were missing. I didn't know if I'd ever see them again. So I sat down to write a story because I read stories to my kids before bed. Always have. And I sat down to write a story that I vowed that I would read to them when I got them back, if I got them back.
oh. How old are your girls?
Right now they're 11 and 13.
What'd you come up with? Tell me about the Dark Prince and the White Crow.
It was one of those like my personal love story was terrible. And so there was like a culmination of things. One thing I've always known is that men, when they get hurt, they put up walls. Whether it's like either heartbreak or feelings hurt or whatever, they put up walls. They put up walls really high, and then they make it really hard for anybody to get through these walls. And I kind of wanted to transmute that into a story and try to. There's like a lot of like hidden meanings in the story. Like one person reads it and they're like, "Oh my gosh, I see this in the story," and then another person reads it and they see something totally different. And it
Hmm.
ultimately, I wanted a story where it seemed like 2 people had been through hell, but they found each other in the craziest of ways. And through time and magic, they kind of, I don't know, fall in love with each other.
So it's a fairy tale.
Yes. Something with, a little bit of darkness because there's a point in the book where the bird dies, and that was something that I kind of like.
The bird dies?
Yeah.
Are we sad? We're sad when that happens, right?
Right. Well, you're more shocked than anything. The story is about this man who basically hated the world and hated society, hated people. So he he built a castle out away from everybody, and he made it out of stone all by himself. And this bird comes along one day, and while he hates people, he loves animals, and it's not just any kind of bird, it's a white crow, which is really weird. And he starts talking to the bird, and while he's talking to the bird starts glowing, and then the bird starts like putting these glowing feathers of hers in all of these dark rooms of his castle, and kind of like brightening his life and lightening his life up. And pretty soon she's out of feathers, and she plucks her final feather, and because she plucked her final feather, she falls over dead. But really, she wasn't a crow to begin with. She was actually a princess turned into a crow, and giving
Oh,
giving away her feathers actually broke the curse on her, and it explains where the curse came from. And then like she turns back into a person, and the dark prince's castle like comes crumbling down, like the walls come crumbling down. And then like he meets the actual princess, who was a crow for a whole year talking to him, and then they go live happily ever after as people.
that is very, very sweet. Did you feel, what kind of satisfaction did you feel when you were done with this? Were did you feel like something cathartic happened while writing this?
Yeah, well, because like I said, I was trying not to lose my mind because my girls are gone. Like I honestly did not know if I would ever see them again. So I was holding my grip on sanity by writing this story. And then when it was done, it's like I knew I would get my girls back. I knew it. I knew that because I had finished the story, I would get the girls back. And then I kind of chalked it up to it was just a story. I didn't really think too much of it until I read it to my girls. When I read it to my girls when I got them, they both started crying.
Oh,
They're like, "Mom, that's the most amazing story ever. You have to publish that. You have to put that in a real book."
oh,
And
Rhiannon, that's beautiful. You gonna keep writing?
yeah, well, I've written two more, actually three, okay, four more stories, like children's book stories. Two
Okay.
of them are like prequels to The Dark Prince. So the White Crow is actually, like I said, a princess that got turned into a crow by her mom, her witch mother.
Okay.
I wrote a story called The White Crow that explains. Well, actually, The White Crow is a story of self discovery. She's turned into a crow. She wakes up in the woods. She doesn't realize she's a crow. She doesn't understand what's going on. She's in complete darkness, and she spends this time walking in darkness. All of a sudden, she sees a light way far away. She walks towards the light. She's discovering things about herself while she's walking towards the light. And then when she finally gets to the light, she realizes that she was actually walking towards a mirror, and the light was in herself. And it's
Oh, Rhiannon, you're very creative.
thank
I
you.
mean, you're busy. You got two girls. Any luck promoting this book? Any ideas?
Well, this all happened three and a half years ago.
Okay.
So I wrote the book, read it to my girls. They loved it. I sat down and illustrated it in about a week. It didn't take me too long. It took me 3 years to pay off the publishers
Okay.
to have it finally published, right?
Okay.
In that 3 years, I have been telling people that this is what I've been working on. This is something I've been doing. This is something that, and a lot of it I have started with the whole. I started it in a domestic violence shelter. I've even contacted the domestic violence shelter since then and been like, "Hey, you guys, I wrote a book while I was there, and I just got it published, and like they just bought a whole bunch of copies, wanted me to send them an autograph copy." I'm like one of the success stories for the domestic violence shelter.
Oh, Rhiannon, that's beautiful.
And I have no problem being that and promoting that. Like that place literally did save my life and my sanity, and it turned mine and my girls' lives around. It's kind of scary, but at the same time, it's I'm lucky and I'm blessed, and it has been a lot of hard work on my part to get here. And I feel like I have to let other women know that look, you can do it. Like if I can do it, you can do it too. And it's scary to leave anything that you're familiar with, even if it is a horrible relationship. I almost did it. I almost didn't escape with my life, you know?
It's a story of resilience. It's a story of hope. So much going on here, Rhiannon.
Yeah, that's why you're like, why did you write a story about that? I'm like, which trauma do you want me to start with, though?
All right. Well, I look forward to talking to you again.
Sure you will. Yeah.
The Dark Prince and the White Crow by Rhiannon Lott. Thank you.
You're welcome. It was good talking to you, too.
Dave Anderson is a city mail carrier in Minnesota, and he's a big fan of the movie Stand By Me. It's evident in his book entitled The Adventures of Haw. A long time coming for this book, huh?
I've had this particular idea about the story for a while, and I've been kicking it around since I was a teenager. And a couple of years ago, I really sat down and thought, I really should do something with this. And it was kind of therapy for me because my wife and I had adopted 3 children from Ukraine. And it just helped me get over stress of dealing with the kids and stress of dealing with things going on at work. So I would, take time from when I wasn't working, and I'd sit down and I'd, go off on an adventure with my buddies that I grew up with.
So these guys really are your buddies. They're based on real people.
Yes, I grew up with Stephen Hill and Derek Wagner, and my friends were musicians. Stephen played piano, Derek played guitar, and when I started hanging out with them, that's when I first bought an acoustic guitar, and we kind of formed a garage band. And I guess one thing led to another, and I thought, wouldn't it be fun to put down some adventures on paper?
Where did Pearl City come from in The Adventures of Haw, where nothing ever happens?
Well, yeah, exactly. Somehow I thought, wouldn't it be funny to arrange our initials, HAW, Hill Anderson Wagner. And I was a huge fan of Encyclopedia Brown growing up. And just that first story of Encyclopedia Brown sitting down with his dad, who was a police officer, and sitting around the dinner table and solving a mystery, just thought, that's a cool story. And so I thought, well, why don't I do something similar like that? The 3 of us solving a mystery.
Okay, so it sounds like, you're all bored, you're sitting around, nothing's happening, and then suddenly in 1 week, everything happens.
Right.
The principal's new secretary doesn't come in. Money's missing from the school account. Pete the Pelican collapsed. Nick's Greek diner caught fire after the big game.
Yeah, it's like I put down on paper, we kind of have to rethink our town and what's going on in our town, because it's not as boring as we thought it was.
I like the cover. Hear no evil, see no evil, speak no evil.
Actually, the 3 of us actually took that picture a little bit later on when we were in high school. We were at a friend's graduation party, and someone said, "Hey, let's get a picture of you 3 guys." So we sat on the hood of a car and we all posed that way. And it was kind of the way the picture looks. It's hilarious because it's the exact opposite. Steve is kind of not covering his eyes, but covering his eyes. I'm kind of trying to hear, and Derek is like, instead of covering his mouth, he's shouting.
Now, how do these kids begin the process of getting to the bottom of what's going on in their town? And why do they feel they need to solve the mystery?
It kind of comes from my Uncle Don character. Kind of like the whole Encyclopedia Brown thing, or the Hardy Boys thing. The Hardy Boys' dad is a private investigator. Encyclopedia Brown's dad is a policeman. My dad was an accountant, so that's kind of a dull profession. So I thought, well, what if I had an uncle that was in law enforcement, and he had something that he was trying to figure out, and we just happened to be there, and we thought, hey, well, let's ask some questions. And that's kind of how things start. We start asking questions, and the more you ask questions, the more things you find out and the more things you learn.
Now, we have to read the book to find out if they're able to solve this mystery, but do we have more mysteries coming? Are there more stories down the road?
Yes. Well, I ended the first book on a cliffhanger. So that's kind of my my incentive, my own kick in the butt to come up with a follow up, something I've got to resolve the cliffhanger. I've got to let people know what happens next. So I'm kind of on that same adventure where I kind of want to see what happens next with these characters.
The mystery isn't necessarily solved.
No, not at the end of the first book.
All right. Are you already hard at work at the second book?
Yes.
Are you out talking about this anywhere?
Well, it's basically word of mouth right now. Fortunately, I work for the post office, so when I walk into one of the businesses on my route, I just happen to mention, I happen to do something on the side. I have a hobby. I kind of write something, and I've kind of finished a first book. Before I started working at the post office, it's kind of ironic. Before I started working at the post office, I worked for the local country station here in town. So I got to know some of the other media people. And I happen to know someone who writes for the local newspaper. And I've mentioned to him, he's one of the people that I thank in the acknowledgments, because as like I mentioned, as someone I knew, I said, hey, I've done this thing. Would you take a look at it and give me some pointers from a newspaper writer's perspective? And since my wife and I had adopted children internationally, we had been interviewed by the local ABC network here in town. So I'm kind of dropping hints here and there. Hey, I've done something recently. Do you think it would make an interesting human interest or a feature story? So I'm still waiting to hear back.
Okay, that's a good start. How old are the kids in the book?
Well, I'd say they're around 11 or 12. They're in seventh, 8th grade.
Yeah, that's what I figured. This reminds me of Stand By Me.
Yeah, exactly. That's one of my favorite movies. I love the beginning where Richard Dreyfuss is sitting at the keyboard and he starts remembering the entire story that the movie comes from.
Yeah. Anyway, so we're going to be hearing more from you, no doubt.
I hope so. Yes, definitely.
All right. Dave Anderson, The Adventures of Haw. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
C.A.Smith was in law enforcement for over 2 decades. He was a county sheriff in Michigan, and now he's written The Gray, Managing Expectations in Law Enforcement. Chris, it seems you were compelled to write this book.
I really did. After my 27 years, I wrote the book as kind of, it's something to help me get through where I am now as opposed to where I was. And as I wrote this as more of a therapy for myself, I found that this could be helpful to those that are entering into this profession. And I felt the need to complete this and provide this for anybody that's interested in becoming a police officer, or anybody that, or is even curious about law enforcement. I find that the public really doesn't fully understand the police work other than what they see on social media. It's just different now than it was then. So the type of police work that was done, I mean, it seemed like we had a little more, I don't want to say free reign, but we had a little more discretion in our work. I mean, we weren't sitting there and being picked at for every single little detail. You teach the black and white of law enforcement in colleges, universities, academies, but nobody really tells you about the internal politics that are involved that you can't help but be involved in. You as an officer, you are there and you are at the will of the administration and at the will of the public.
So how do you lay this out in your book?
Well, first I start out with kind of an explanation of getting into the field, what can be expected of you when you get into the field, starting from when you start your academy into day one of starting with the agency. because everybody's expectations are going to be different. The person that's becoming a police officer, they have different expectations. They think they're going in there and they're, and they're going to do good for the community there, which is, it's a lofty goal. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I don't think they truly understand everything that is involved in it, which is what my book is about. It's going to provide the inside details of pitfalls, internal and external pitfalls that can be, evaluated in there. And you can look at it and go, wow, okay, now that I know about this, maybe, this is something I should look out for and maybe avoid.
You want to give me an example of that?
Like anything having to do with I mentioned fraternization in my book. Whereas if you have you spend a lot of time with officers in a car together. You're in there for 8 hours a day, 8 to 12 hours a day, depending upon, where you work and what your shift is. And you develop relationships with these people. And it's not just men and women, it's men and men, women and women. And as you develop these relationships, you may develop something more deep, or, as soon as you spend so much time together, you're of the same mindset, you get involved and have a relationship. Now, this relationship may also cause a problem internally within the department. People, the officers you work with may be concerned about, whether or not your head's in the right place, whether or not you're going to make the right decisions because you're in a personal relationship with your partner. It's kind of like you really shouldn't date who you work with. It's not a good practice.
That's across the board.
Yes.
Talk about the socio-political implications of social media.
Okay, now the social media thing that's an issue is that nowadays everybody's got a cell phone out. And any time that the police do anything, there is a cell phone out. There are people there. There is being a recording. Here's the thing: there's never a real true representation of what actually happens in the event. It's there can always be something that's changed in it or doctored in it, or it's not a true, or you're only getting part of the situation where you don't get the whole story. So basically, this social media is getting, let's face it, all this information can just be sent out nationwide, worldwide, like instantaneously. So what can be sent out in just a few minutes, we spend the rest of our career trying to defend and trying to, explain, and it makes our job even harder. And what do we do about it? That's why my thing is this. I contend that we have to have officers that are just as savvy in social media. But not only that, you actually have to, I think we've gotten away from the culture of what law enforcement should be. Law enforcement should be, it's not an us against them. We need to be more community based. We need to interact more with the public on a level, instead of being in cars, be in the neighborhoods. Do the old school things that used to be done, but do them in a more practical manner now. Because let's face it, this isn't the 1990s. This is 2020. We have to have agencies that are more in touch with the public, and they're not. I've seen it over and over again where the administration for these agencies are all about the political machine. They're all worried about their own place within it and running the agency. And they forget about the one thing that they're hired to do, and that's protect and serve the public.
Right. If you're a friend of the community, then when an altercation happens, they're more likely to be on your side because they know you. They know who you are.
Exactly. And nobody knows us right now. The old ways of walking the beat and going out there, going to community events. Putting the officers out there, not just in a way of enforcing laws, but also bridging gaps. There are things that happen on the street that are split-second decisions that you have, a second to figure out, and the administration has, days upon days to Monday morning quarterback. An example of that would probably be like if you go to a situation, you may have, been to a situation before where like it's the same house that you've dealt with before. It's the same people within the house. Could be a domestic disturbance. It could be something, else. but you go there and you already have an expectation of what you're doing. I mean, no situation is going to be the same, but you kind of, I mean, officers will get, set in a specific way of how to handle things, and it doesn't go down that way. I mean, you can't treat everything the same, and you have to learn to adapt. You have to learn to treat people with respect. You have to be able to empathize with people. If you can't empathize, you are in the wrong profession.
You said that a university had your book right now that they were reviewing.
Yeah, actually, I have 8 right now that are reviewing it. Well, not just universities, they're universities/colleges.
Did you send your book to them?
Yes, I did. Actually, I contacted them first by phone and explained to them exactly what I had written, and we, talked about it, kind of giving them a Reader's Digest version, and asked them to please, if they would, please read it and consider it for their curriculum. That's
great. And so you may end up going in to talk.
Actually, I've already talked to the last college that I had sent a book to. She's very much interested in possibly me coming out and doing some guest speaking. Yes.
That's great. So you're on the right track.
I am. The thing is I'm not doing this because, I mean, people think, hey, you write a book and you're trying to do it to get famous or make money. And it couldn't be farther from the truth, because I'm going to give you a little personal info about myself. That I had retired from the sheriff's department, and I did so on a medical because of between the physical aspects of not being able to do the job anymore, multiple surgeries with the type of work that I had done, and also mental difficulties as well. I took it upon myself and my family to retire early, and instead of going full 30 years. But as I did that, that's when I started writing, and I realized that I love this profession. I absolutely love this profession. I love everything that it is supposed to represent. And when I had an opportunity to, as I was writing this, going, you know what, maybe this can actually make a difference if I can get this in the hands of the people that need it. And I think that was my real driving force behind writing the book at that point, because I want them to have the opportunity that I didn't have.
Thank you for writing this book. I mean, your heart and soul is in it. I can hear that. And you want things to get better for police officers, law enforcement, but also in protecting the public. You want to be able to do your job.
Well, and that's just it. I just want police to have, I want the officers to have a fair shake, and I want the public to get the service that they deserve.
Going to keep writing?
Actually, I am. I actually have notes for a second book, but I'm not quite sure when I'm going to get to it. With everything going on with this one right now, I'm really focused on trying to get this one in the schools right now.
All right. Well, that's a good problem.
Yes, it is.
You got a real purpose now, C.A.Smith.
Yes, I'd like to think I do.
Well, thank you so much. The Gray, Managing Expectations in Law Enforcement.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me.
Writing, marketing, and creating for corporate America. That's what Lauren Brown's been doing for most of her life. And thanks to a remarkable transformation during COVID, she was able to channel that knowledge and energy into her book, Sunshine Dog.
I had a moment of, in my life, it was that moment of, okay, what is going on here? It was the whole COVID situation. And I was at a crossroads of jobs, and I got divorced, because trust me, I am not a religious person, never was. And for all this to happen to me, it was just like I was getting a kick in the butt. And I actually read, I hadn't read the Bible before, and I read the book of Revelations, which was the last book of the Bible, and my life just like kind of went into a whirlwind at that point. So from there, I kid you not, it was the spring of 2021. My life did a 180, was fired spring of 21. My son had a vision of Jesus in the fall of 2021, told me we needed to be baptized, and we were December 19th of 2021. And then I just, I said at that point, like, what am I supposed to do with my life? And that day, I did the whole character development. I wrote Sunshine Dog in that whole day, and I wrote 3 different books in the series. And I mean, that's really how it all just happened all at once.
That's crazy.
So I call it the divine download.
The divine download. I like that. Tell me about this book.
Again, we had politically charged atmosphere. The kids were out of school, and there was just a lot of God and Bible references being removed from mainstream media books, libraries, and especially the public school systems. And I was thinking I wanted to change that, and I created the Sunshine Dog character is based off of our family dog, and she has a giant heart-shaped patch on her side. So it was kind of already in my head, and she's got a heart so big that she makes everyone around her feel happy and loved. But her favorite thing to do was bathe in the sun, and my son, who was 8 at the time, always called her Sunshine Dog. So the story itself is based on the real life adventures and struggles of growing up, based on my son and daughter's point of view.
What kinds of struggles are we talking about?
This one in particular is introducing you to Sunshine Dog and her family. And the moral and overall theme of the book is that we may look different or come from different backgrounds, but we are all equally loved under Christ as sons and daughters, or in Sunshine Dog's case, brothers and sisters. So the book itself, it focuses on Sunshine Dog, which has a brother named Bo, and her sister, which is a cat named Twinkle Sprinkles. And it's really Sunshine Dog struggling to figure out the differences between her and her brother and the sister, the cat. So it's just really a good, fun themed book of how we can use different references and Bible references that we use at the end of the book, and how you can apply it in everyday life.
Can you give me a for instance?
The end of the book is Psalms, love one another as brothers and sisters. And Sunshine Dog in the book itself can't understand why her family member looks different than her. So she has her cat Twinkle Sprinkles, which is black and white. And Sunshine Dog herself is brown and white with floppy ears. And at the end of the day, she was trying to figure out the differences, and overall she realizes in the end it doesn't matter, and they're all family.
Very cute. Now, in this divine download, you got 3 books?
3 children's books. We haven't printed the other 2 yet, but they're ready and in the fire, ready to go.
Did it give you any indication how you should go out and tell the world about these books?
As of right now, I have some websites lined up in the fire and social media accounts that I plan to use the actual real characters and who they're based off of the dogs and cats that I have, and putting out a cool social series. I on the side, I have reached out to some librarians, and Mississippi, for example, just brought the Bible back into schools for the whole state of Mississippi, but I do believe we can start in the private sector. The private schools, absolutely libraries, but I do believe there is an opportunity to bring this into schools in the public school sector.
Now, are you going to keep writing? Are you going to keep with this theme?
Yes, I am. I'm going to continue. So I have the Sunshine Dog series, which will be just continuations. Again, at the end of each book is a Bible verse, and it will have the theme of the overall, again, as I said, the application of giving the parent or readers a chance to reflect and discuss how Sunshine Dog and the characters approach the question or situation, and how they applied the verse in their everyday lives. So I am continuing Sunshine Dog series. But then I do have another genre of books I'm working on, which is more adult. So I don't know if we're going to discuss that today, but I am actually working on something else.
Okay. Well, I'm looking forward to it. Lauren Brown, author of Sunshine Dog. Thanks for talking to me.
It's nice speaking to you.
When Mallory Skoug isn't working a ranch outside her small Texas town, she's writing. And about 2 years ago, she decided to take the leap and publish A Swallow's Heart. What happened, Mallory?
I had been thinking about really getting serious about writing a novel for a little while, and I felt like God was telling me it was time to take it more serious. And I remember one morning I was talking to my sister, and I said, I've got an idea for a book. And I told her about it, and she said, you know what, you just got to go for it. So I decided to give it a try, and I kind of laid out the baseline for it, and then I started writing.
It sounds from reading your synopsis that you're very interested in the Civil War.
Yes, ma'am, I am. Since I've been reading, most of the books I read are based during the Civil War. Pretty much anything historical fiction is what I like.
Tell me your story.
Well, um, I decided that I wanted to go with a Civil War time frame since I've been interested in it, and I decided to go with the Swallow's Heart theme because since I've been little, I've always loved swallows, and they have so much meaning to them. And we actually would go and ride the river in our boat a lot, and we'd see them. And there was my mom when I was 13 actually got me a necklace, and it was a swallow, and it came with a little story talking about how a swallow will never go far from its home, and when you see one, it means you're close to home because that's where their heart is. So that always stuck with me, and I was like, you know what? That's how I'm going to base my story because home is very important to me.
Okay, so you basically have 4 characters. We
Yes,
have the
ma'am.
Smiths and the Johnsons and their children, Merritt and Kate Smith, and Jonas and Jim Johnson.
Yes, ma'am.
And they're growing up in the 1860s.
Yes,
What
ma'am.
happens to them?
Well, Mert and Kate are very close, and they get very close to their church friends, Jonas and Jim. But, of course, just like boys, Jonas decides to go off to the war, and I wanted to focus in the story more on how they felt at home because almost all the books you read are about the war front. And I don't think people really grasp sometimes how hard it was for the people back at home. Like, and what I really want to emphasize was how hard it probably was on them then too, especially on the younger people, you know, especially like the teens and the even the kids that didn't really quite understand, like little Jim, you know. In the book, he missed his brother. And Mert and Kate, they're there for little Jim. They take him riding, they take him out fishing, pretty much anything they can do, but it's just not the same without Jonas there. And Mert, she's closer to Jonas, being closer in age, and she is really struggling to keep being there for her sister and Jim whenever she herself is missing Jonas very badly. But at the end, when Jonas comes home safe from the war after a miraculous, I guess you could say, experience about getting to come home, he realizes that maybe his adventurous side got a hold of him and he really needed to be at home where his heart would have been the whole time.
Do you talk about his experience being a soldier at all?
Yes, ma'am. In the book, I have a couple of times where he sends letters home, kind of telling them a little bit that happens and a few of the times he fought. And at the end, to the readers will understand, I have both families sitting out on the porch and Jonas is talking about his experiences and he tells them how he and his horse were injured in a fight, and one of the generals asked him how old he is. Jonas tells him, of course, then they wanted you to be at least 18, and he tells Jonas he needed to get home to his family.
How old was he?
He was 17.
Were they affected by the war at all? Were their homes affected by the war?
Their homes weren't affected, but their community was. They're very divided because in Texas, you had a lot of people that were for the North and a lot of people that were for the South. So it was what they called a divided state. And I decided to, in the fictional community, make that part of it because there's a lot of towns and communities during the war that got split because of people's different beliefs. And also, church is a big part in the story. And I even emphasize where it can even affect the church. And in the story, the Smiths decided to take a break from church because of all the gossip and bickering that the war had created. And it just kind of showed how I just wanted to show how it affected so many other things besides just the war front.
There were towns that were destroyed, right?
Yes, ma'am. Now they did end up going back to church, and Jonas did come home, and it ended the story. The war was still going on because, and Kate, the little sister, she said, "How is he even home? The war is long from being over." But that's where I came back with his age, and he got to come home.
So where did we end this book? Does it leave open the possibility for a follow-up?
Yes, ma'am, it does. And I've actually had a lot of people ask me, will I be writing a sequel? And to tell the truth, if I ever find time, I do intend on writing another one.
Do people know you wrote this book?
Yes, ma'am, a few. I've been trying on social media to promote it, and I've been talking to people, spreading the word. I'm fixing to get in contact with our local newspapers, and I'm going to try to do book signings and different things to get the word out.
Great. So you're going to keep writing?
I would like to, yes, ma'am. But of course, life has its times where you get busy, but I would like to keep writing. Maybe not full time, but I enjoy it.
Yeah, you sound like a busy woman, and it sounds like what you do is very physical.
Yes, ma'am. I've actually, since I published this one, I've started a few different stories. I've never committed to any seriously, but I have different ideas kind of going.
Mallory, you should write about what you do.
Yes, ma'am. That's been a thought as well. I know that me and my sister, we have a lot of adventures we could tell.
I bet.
Yes, ma'am. And I try to include that in the story. Like the kids will go riding, which I don't ride horses as much as my sister, but back then they didn't have vehicles or four wheelers. But me and my sister, the story has a lot of our childhood in it because me and my little sister Caitlin, we were tomboys. We stayed outside, we hunted, we fished. We always hung out with the boys. And when I decided to write this book, I thought, I gotta have boys in there because we that's what we did when we were little. We hung out with the guys and we were right in there with them.
All right. Mallory Skoug, author of A Swallow's Heart. Thanks for talking to me.
Yes, ma'am, and thank you.
Terrence Young-Turner has published his first children's book. It is entitled Just Us, Our Adventure. Terrence, you said you've been writing since you were 11?
Because I love singing, and my stepmom would tell me I couldn't sing. So to express myself, I started writing.
That's a beautiful thing. What kinds of things did you write?
So I loved poems. I started out with poems, and then as I got a little bit older, I started to write these short stories. And then when I became an adult, I got infatuated at about 26 with horror. So I would have these like weird dreams, and I would turn them into like horror short stories.
Nice. Now, this Just Us, Our Adventure,
Yes, ma'am.
what inspired that?
So to be honest with you, as a kid, I was always teased. So when, and I got teased not only from school, every day. It was just not a day. And then, I got teased at home by my siblings as well. So I always have felt like the outcast. Now that I'm older, I have nieces and nephews, and I don't want them to ever feel like no one loves them or like a part of them is missing. So I wrote it essentially for them so that they always remember, well, Uncle Terrence went through this situation, and he taught me how to get out of it if something like that were to happen to me.
Can you give me an example?
So my mom and dad got divorced when I was a little. So, my mom would take my brothers and I would be left with my dad. So I always felt like I had to switch homes every few years between my mom and my dad in order for one of them to love me. I didn't want their love to waver because I chose one parent over the other. So essentially, I would go to my mom thinking, hey, she would love me along with my siblings that she had, and the same thing with my dad. And as I got older, I realized, family is not what you have, it's what you make it. Because even then, I never felt like I belonged. So I had to grow up and find my own family.
Tell me how you lay out your story.
Yes, ma'am. So it's about an alligator who is teased, ridiculed from not only, his fellow alligators, but also everybody. And he's just a happy-go-lucky alligator, and he realizes, he's tired of getting his feelings hurt, essentially. So he leaves to find his family. He leaves to find something, and along the way, he finds a snake, a crab, and a turtle who are just like him. They have these things about them that not everybody loves. And and along the way they realize it wasn't meant to be a long journey, just long enough for them to find each other.
What is it about them that nobody likes?
So the alligator, he's an alligator, so he's scary. So all of the birds, everybody runs away from him. The crab, well, he has one leg missing. So where I'm from, where it's from South Carolina, we have a lot of seafood or whatever. So people tend to throw away crabs if they miss a limbs. The snake, of course, he's a snake, so everybody's afraid of a snake. And then the turtle, he's a different color than everyone else. He's like an orange purple color, so it makes everybody else like question him because he's different. So it starts with the alligator. He goes on his way, and then he meets the turtle. Him and the turtle has the conversation, and he's like, well, he's like, what's wrong? Because the turtle looks sad. And then they go on their way, they tell a little story, then they both meet a crab. And you can see where the crab is missing his leg, so everybody treats him differently because he's not like the other crabs. And then along their journey, they meet a purple snake that, of course, is a snake, so the snake is scary. So essentially, all of them are supposed to be going on this journey together as they're meeting each other. And then in the middle of this journey, to find what originally the alligator was looking for, because he did not know, it was meant for them to find each other and be a family.
That's a wonderful lesson for kids.
I have two actually. The first one is everybody's different. That's just what it is. You can't tease, you can't ridicule somebody because they are different. Everybody's not going to be the same. And also the family thing. Like if you feel like you don't have family or you're being teased or whatever the case may be, find that family. And especially in my community, being who I am, you have to find people that love you and appreciate you for who you are.
You know what? You can't pick your family, but you can pick your friends. Am I right?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. You are right. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Now, how are you getting the word out about this book?
So I'm going back home to South Carolina. So I actually have sessions set up with the principal of my nephew's school, 4-year-old, their kid, so he's 4, to read to them in their library.
Good for you.
Yes, ma'am.
Are you going
Yes,
to keep
ma'am.
writing?
Yes, ma'am. I actually I love writing. So now I'm trying to get my like short stories together. And then I want to like create, I guess it's called a compilation of those short stories and make something of that.
That's great. Terrence Young-Turner, author of Just Us, Our Adventure.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks so much.
All Oh, man. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it.
We hope you enjoyed this edition of the ReaderHouse Author Roundtable, where authors from all walks of life come together to discuss the trials, tribulations, and triumphs of publishing their books. I'm Alice Stockton Rossini. We hope to see you back here every Saturday night at 8 o'clock, or listen to our podcast anytime on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher, TuneIn, and PodServe, just to name a few. The Author Roundtable is sponsored by ReaderHouse Online Bookstore, where independent new authors come first.